Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel and I'll be your moderator. Today's webinar is sponsored by NatRoad's Platinum Partner Packer and the Dealer Network. Whether it's moving freight across the nation or going the last mile, their DAF trucks are always delivering. Now let me introduce our guest speakers, Greg Phil, Director of Safety Assurance and Research, and Wayne Whitmore, Principal Accreditation Advisor from the Safety Standards and Assurance NHVR. In this webinar, Wayne and Greg will discuss the changes that will underpin the revised NHVAS as of February 2021. Now, before I hand over to Wayne to begin his presentation, may I request that you put your microphone on mute to avoid any disturbance during the webinar. We'll be answering questions that have been sent in at the end of the session. Without further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming Wayne. Over to you.
Thanks, Rachel. It's Greg Phil here. I'll just give a quick intro first and say thanks to yourself, Clara and Richard and the rest of the NatRoad team for giving us the opportunity to present today. It's a big project for us around the enhanced business rules and standards for our National Heavy Vehicle Accreditation Scheme, which are coming in next year. I'll talk about why we've had those changes just shortly, and then hand over to our resident National Heavy Vehicle Accreditation Scheme guru, Wayne Whitmore, who'll talk you through all of the technical components. I suppose more importantly, though, for all the members listening in, it will be the what changes actually are, how they might affect different areas, why they're in place, and what you can do to align to them with your business, as well as all of the relevant quick guides and tools that we've developed so far, and more that are coming down the pipeline to help assist industry parties in meeting those enhanced requirements. So without further ado, you'll see that first slide up there is why the changes. So it is our first major update, believe it or not, in over 10 years. The scheme has been around for a while. There are over 7,500 operators now accredited under the National Heavy Vehicle Accreditation Scheme. It is the largest scheme of its type in Australia. The scheme was decided that, as we're all trying to do, we're trying to improve safety outcomes. That's obviously one of the high priorities for us here at the Heavy Vehicle Regulator. And so in reviewing the scheme, it was determined that some of the elements, which were primarily quality assurance based, also need to include a range of elements around safety management system ideals and processes and mechanisms, such as the need to report significant and concerning safety incidents that might occur as part of heavy vehicle transport. There was also a great opportunity for us to really remove any ambiguity. We've gotten lots of feedback prior to us going down this project and during a very heavy consultation process, where there's ambiguity, give a greater understanding and clarity around some of the business rules that were in place. It also helped fill gaps for, I suppose, some feedback that we got from operators saying, look, we know that having the National Heavy Vehicle Accreditation Scheme doesn't automatically provide, meeting your safety requirements underneath the National Heavy Vehicle law, but it can go a long way towards that. So we got feedback saying, well, what can you do incorporating these changes to help us meet those obligations? So we tried to filter in some components for that as well. And obviously, as we're trying to reduce duplicity, I know we got some feedback by saying you're increasing stuff, but actually we reduced a lot of it by where we might have had the requirements for 2 modules in the past. We've tried to see, can we incorporate those into one? So Wayne's going to talk about them a little bit more and hopefully give all of the listeners a really good idea of what's to come. Wayne.
Thanks, Greg. So this program of work has been put together to take everybody on a very measured journey into what the revised business rules is all about. As Greg has identified for us, the safety management system protocols, ideals, methodologies, whichever word we may like to use, will see us move away from a quality management system into a much more identifiable system where people identify it as a safety management system. But we didn't want to do it in a way where people had to go and revise or completely change what they have. So this work is task and work program related, so that when the pieces of work are completed by the operator, they will inherently be doing these work that sees them safety management system aligned. The updates that are required are procedural in nature, but there's no major revamp or redesign of any existing systems that they may actually already have. The duplicity comes in one area where at the moment we have two separate business rules, one for advanced fatigue management and a set of rules that sits with the other modules for basic fatigue. We could see there was a complete duplication in a lot of areas there. So now the business rules and standards cover all of the modules in one area, just with minor different requirements. So a couple of the first things we want to talk about is major changes and clarifications. And what we'll do today, this is a brief outline of some of the key changes and the clarifications. And it is understood that when the previous business rules were released, some of the wording was a little convoluted and simply not clear. So we took this opportunity to provide as clear a meaning as we could. And one of the areas was a vehicle being registered or not. So to be nominated in the scheme, a vehicle must be registered. Circumstances that include seasonal registration are certainly considered without issue. So any states that use partial registration system or registrations that remain dormant for a time but can be reenacted, that is still considered as being registered. So those vehicles could quite easily remain in the scheme, but a vehicle that remains unregistered or becomes deregistered, it is not allowed to stay in the scheme. Now that's not a change, that's simply a clarification. So what we've then done is the inclusion of the notifiable occurrences, and these are nominated in two variables, notifiable in both major and significant. And I'll actually be able to expand on those as we go through. But we looked at goal setting for what the scheme could offer the operator the best that we could give to them now. And making a clear set of goals to be granted the maximum 3 years of accreditation was certainly seen as a benchmark of what we could assist operators have. So if we could make it very clear what you need to do to get 3 years of accreditation, we would be encouraging all operators to seek that level of accreditation. So what would it mean for 3 years of accreditation? So initially, and we will expand on the notifiable occurrences so they'll understand, but when we did our consultation phase, it came clear to us there were certain hindrances with defect notices that people were receiving. And it was defect notices that weren't necessarily completely safety orientated. So with the feedback that we were given from so many different organisations like yourselves, we were able to look at that feedback and go, yes, we agree with that. So one major outcome with this area was that minor defects would not be considered when 3 years of accreditation was asked. So it's only a defect on a vehicle. So if the vehicle is talking about maintenance management, it's only defect notices that are major or higher in severity that will in fact be in consideration for when that is asked for. During an audit period, there would be expected that it wouldn't have any needed corrective actions. This level of accreditation is held to the highest that we could ask for. So therefore, we would expect the system to be operating as well as it could be. So there ought not be any gaps with operational procedures. So there shouldn't really be any need for corrective actions during that accreditation period. More seriously, though, is a receipt of breaches or infringement notices against the HVNL. But it's more specific than that. So the modules that people may or may not have, it's infringements relevant to the module. So a couple of examples I would give you, if it's a maintenance management module we're talking about, then it's breaches for using a vehicle, an unsafe vehicle. If we're talking about mass management, then it will be breaches for overloading or load securities, for instance. If it's a fatigue module, then it's work diary related or fatigue related infringements. So you can see that it's related, it's infringements that are directly related to the module that the person may be asking for the accreditation for. This is not an exhaustive list of type of infringements, but it gives you an idea of what it is that we would be looking for. And we certainly are encouraging all operators to look for this. And the time that it's suitable or when they can ask for it is either when they are maintaining their current accreditation is they have the opportunity while they submit their application via the portal to add the notification for consideration of 3 years of accreditation. For a new entrant into the scheme, a 2 years of accreditation is given on the first accreditation period. After that time, they too would have the opportunity to ask for the extended accreditation. And this is one area that will certainly assist with operators in spanning out expense and making their job easier of less auditing. With this level of accreditation, it's only given to those who can uphold the rules to the highest esteem. And for a voluntary scheme, they are the people who are the ideal participants for us. And we certainly encourage everyone to aspire to that level. So our next area of important focus is notifiable occurrences. These are no different to what would be and should be already being reported to WorkSafe. Again, research showed us that in many instances, this kind of reporting, transport is not comfortable or not actually carrying out. So therefore, it was only with the regulator we needed to look at our responsibilities of running a safety management program. So what a safety management program needs a reporting process like any other safety management system. So we needed to look at our responsibilities of how we could see the reporting for the intended outcomes of the scheme. And that launched into what it will become a data gathering process. And it's important to understand a couple of aspects about what these notifiable occurrence reporting will mean. It's not a punitive process, it is a data gathering process. We will not be gathering personal information, we'll be gathering circumstantial information. When we look at a word and we use the word significant for personal injury, that's a hospitalisation that requires a hospital visit stay. That's not just visiting a hospital to get fixed up or an emergency area. It's where you are required to have an overnight stay in a hospital for treatment. For vehicle losses, we use the insurance term, which is referred to as total loss, for where vehicles are to that level of damage. And we have a couple of distinct definitions that we give to them, which we will have for you as well. What are they involved with? Only NHVAS related or nominated vehicles and or drivers that are part of a fatigue module. So it's not all vehicles, only those that are actually under the scheme or drivers operating a fatigue module under the scheme. And as I explained, this material is it's only circumstantial in nature, data gathering process. It's not punitive in any way. What is expected from it, though, is an operator would need to have a documented instruction that identifies who is meant to report it and how. And we know that the reporting process we'll be able to easily provide for you. But the documented process of how the operator does do it would be an expectation within their policies and procedures. It's also understood that because we have these categories of significant or major, that it could be subjective a little bit to some case, and that's quite okay. There is no inference that if someone reports something in a wrong category, that they will have a black mark against them. We are here to educate, to assist. We are here to help people through the processes of understanding what this means. So it's more a case of being able to report than not. But an important part of what this is and where it sits in the business rules, if we were to detect deliberate avoidance of reporting, then because this process sits within the business rules, it does give us the avenue to take further action if it's deemed necessary. Hence the business rules do give us that availability. These are the two definitions. The message I would have people take away from this, the difference between significant and major revolves around fatality. If an incident involves a fatality, then it is a major incident. Apart from that, it is the significant area of the overnight hospital stay, or what's talked about here, a damage to property which represents a significant risk that requires considerable effort to avoid escalation. Yes, there is some subjective decision making in there, and that is fully accepted, fully supported, and we are only too happy to help people understand and work through that. If something doesn't get reported because it's misunderstood, that is not a black mark against accreditation in any way, shape or form. With a good reporting process, we need to have some parameters put around it, and we have our time frames there. The method of providing this report to us, we have put together a portal application process, but it is simply an operator reading a question and selecting an answer. We're not asking for war and peace. We're not asking for essay-style written answers. It will be as easy as possible when they choose the question or select the question and provide the answer. A couple of examples of those, the type of questions you may read, it would be, what is your level of incident? And it would simply an answer of significant or major. And it will be a choice answer. You won't need to write. You'll actually select the answer. Another type of example would be any dangerous goods involved, and the answer selection would either be a yes or no. So that's, again, just an indication of how we understand that people will consider additional burdens. We take that on board, but what we have tried to do is provide seamless and easier process as we can do, taking all of the negatives into consideration. So the timeframes that you'll see that are assessed to be given to us is relevant to the risk involved, and that's no more than the more risk involved with the more serious incident, the sooner we would want to know about it. But what do we get from it? What the regulator wants to get from this information is a data ability to understand major and possible issues. So if we are gathering the same information from more than one source, it certainly could be a trigger for a further investigation that the safety team within the regulator would look at to go and find root cause. But then we have the opportunity to provide a broad sense of assistance to the transport industry as a whole. So not only do we get to help one or two people, but we get to help many that could be inflicted with the same problem, especially if it's a hypothetical situation where the material is because of a failed product that somebody may not know. So they may have bought a product, it may have failed, but in fact it's a batch of products. If we are centralising the information, we're certainly in a position to help many people at a greater time. What I'll quickly work into now is some of the specific module changes. So this one here, again, revolves specifically around a reporting process. What is often overlooked at the moment is that authorities, when they hand out a defect notice, they are actually providing a near-miss report to the operator. So the operator gets to make use of a reporting process that they don't even have to invoke for themselves. But what they are given is a visibility of information that is very important to the status of their vehicles. So with a collation of this information in a centralised area, in a centralised way, an operator has the opportunity to have visibility in a manner that allows them to see what's really going on. So if a very fast increase in the number of defects was to happen, they can quickly say, oh, why I need to be addressing this. Then the information on the defects leads them to further analysis they may need. And even conversely to that, a reduction in the number of defects can often also confirm for them that their procedures that are being done by their workshops or their staff is in fact being done as they would expect. So it's a visibility status in a very quick manner about how or what the vehicles may represent. And it's not unless we make use of this data in an analysis method, which safety management systems focus around, about knowing what it is. So we can only assess risk from information we know. The more information that we know, the more risk analysis we can do. That's what reporting means. So when we put reports together, it adds to that. So again, another one with our standards, a register of employees, we need to know what's happening by who, not just the role, but we need to know who's doing stuff for historical reasons, especially with high turnovers of staff. It could very well be that the person has left, but then responsibilities have fallen to somebody who's not yet been aware of it because they've moved on. So this recording of information is all about people having a good visibility of what their current status of operations actually are. Specifically in maintenance management, we've included the process of checking tow couplings, a known area both in mechanical and personal failure, so people may not connect it correctly or they may not have looked at the connection for a very long time. So that will now become an inclusion in the daily check. We've had people tell us about, I can't say the vehicle's roadworthy. And again, the feedback given to us was, yes, we agree with that. So the wording will be changed from saying the vehicle is safe, from roadworthy, to the vehicle is safe. And the inspection that's done on a daily basis is no more than a set of safety items that are checked and evaluated. They are not being asked to provide a degree of roadworthiness, but rather that this set of items have been checked, evaluated, and deemed safe to the limits of that inspection. A couple of other things that were asked when we were doing a review. We were asked to include the fact that the label is fitted, not obscured, and free of damage, and that the vehicle actually has an Intercept report book in it. So these are items that you will see included in the daily check from now. All nominated vehicles to undergo a mechanical inspection. This is a newly inclusion of ours and becomes the acid test for the scheme. Up until now, it's only relied on a documents record-based status to say vehicles are okay. It will now move to where vehicles are inspected by a qualified person to say that the report is yes, the vehicle is good or bad. Where those reports will be then form part of the auditing process to understand that. An important point, or two important points I would make this one, a qualified person can be a operator if they can get somebody to give them a letter of authority or a statutory declaration saying that they have sufficient knowledge that will be acceptable, and also that there is no roller brake testing required. It is only a brake performance test. We've made it clear in the Mass module now that it's both trucks and trailers must be used anything used in combination with the Mass vehicle must be operated in accordance with the scheme, and the documented procedure of how the vehicles are nominated. In other words, the vehicle register, a documented procedure for how the vehicle register is put together must now be included. Has always been part of maintenance management. That's one of the areas where we've come across to align with the modules doing the same work. Standard 5 is a good give back. So where we currently have a requirement that vehicles must get check weighed every so often, if the vehicle can be shown to not exceed the weight via the loading process. In other words, if a vehicle is a water carrier, has a known volume of water, can't exceed the weight, well then its standard 3 loading process will be accepted as not needing to be reweighed again. And that goes for other areas such as concrete agitators, and there are other industries that can show the same. For those vehicles that aren't in that situation and do need check weighing, there will be a minimum of 2 weighs per year. At the moment, there is no minimum requirement, and with someone with 3 years of accreditation could mean that they don't get checked for 3 years, which is a risk that we're seeing need to have some mitigation against, which will become the biannual check of that. With our AFM BFM standards now joining one, it's removed the duplication. All the criteria remain, but what we have added is one additional standard, which is workplace conditions. This is recognising the vehicle as a workplace and is fit for purpose. So a vehicle that not fitted with ventilation, has no air conditioning, but is very hot circumstances, there would need to be a mitigation about using that vehicle or how much the vehicle would be used. So it's a recognition of the vehicle that the driver is being asked to use is fit for purpose, is what the process of meeting the workplace conditions is. The second part is ADR 42, and that's simply the size of the cabin meets the minimum sleeping requirements, and that is not new. That has always been with us. So we're not saying what the work health safety rules are. We're simply saying that the vehicle must meet the fit for task according to the lines of work health and safety requirements. Moving into how do we implement it? Anyone coming into the scheme for the first time will need to actually meet the rules as of 22 February. For everyone else, all our existing participants, they'll have one complete accreditation cycle to move into the changes. How will you know about the changes? You'll have 2 or 3 easy ways. With the guides that we produce, all the material we produce will have a checklist in it to show the changes. In addition to that, the auditors that we use will be undertaking gap analysis as part of the auditing process, and they will issue what we're going to call Transitional Corrective Action Requests, which actually point out to the operator what it is that they need to fix up. The Transitional Corrective Action Request can have up to a period of 2 years to be implemented. So what we're doing is showing it's a very smooth and measured transition. We want people to understand the change, we want people to appreciate the change, and we want people to appreciate how the changes will benefit them. And that's one of the big outcomes of how they positioning, when people are completing these tasks, how better that position they are by completing these additional changes. So a bit of a time frame here. You have an audit to maintain accreditation. The audit's done using the revised standards. Gaps are identified using the transitional CARs, and they can be closed out at latest by the next audit. Certainly, we will be encouraging everybody to do it earlier, but everyone does have that time up to the next audit should they need to do it. So that is the brief overview of the key changes. You can see our further information there, which I'm happy for everyone to copy. It's been very brief. We do have a much fuller set of discussion that we have and is available on our website as pre-produced videos that from our industry webinars as well that we do hold. So they will be available on our website, as well as these slides from this show, this short brief session we've had today as well. So we're happy to take the questions at this time.
Okay, so thank you. We're now going to begin answering the questions submitted prior to today's presentation. Wayne and Greg together will be assisting in answering these questions. So Wayne, our first question is, will enrolment in NHVAS maintenance accreditation still mean that operators get an exemption from annual inspections in New South Wales and Queensland?
Most definitely. The NHVAS maintenance management module is an alternative method to comply with the jurisdictions that run programmed inspections. So yes, most definitely exemptions from their programmed inspections if the vehicle is nominated in maintenance management module.
Wonderful, thank you. Second question is, what is the NHVR doing to help better alignment of annual inspection requirements, NHVAS maintenance modules, and other state and territory rules like permit conditions?
So with participation in the maintenance module, providing an alternative method of complying with state annual inspection requirements, alignment has already achieved a lot of what we're trying to do there. And any other specific areas of conditions that may also be included for alignment, we see as appropriate. So yes, it's always considered. Other schemes or other, I should say, processes, and one example is PBS. Often PBS put their own conditions in there, and if they can align with NHVAS inspections, they would be looked to do that as well.
Thank you for that. Third question. The Productivity Commission made a formal finding in its recent transport regulation report. Heavy vehicle accreditation schemes create opportunities for operators to implement flexible approaches to some aspects of their business. However, evidence of the safety effects of heavy vehicle accreditation schemes is incomplete. Improving the range and type of data collected is important for effective risk-based regulation and enforcement. Has the NHVR any plans to bridge this gap so far as the NHVAS is concerned?
Greg is our expert in that area, and I'll let Greg answer that question.
Surprising, apart from workplace health and safety, there's no other mandatory requirement for heavy vehicle operators to report any safety incidents whatsoever. Certainly not to us, not to police or anyone. So, so there's a gap there, in essence, for our rapidly growing number of operators under the heavy vehicle accreditation scheme. And with the help of our online process to report incidents as easily as possible, we believe we'll pick up a lot more data on that, and that will help inform future possible changes to our scheme and areas where it can make it a bit easier. And that's I suppose, making sure that we're information and risk-based. We're also undertaking biennial surveys every 2 years of the industry to ascertain their safety capability, including for specific sectors of the industry. And we ask all participants if they're included in it. Yes. This year's, when we did our baseline this year, was provide a measurable base for future surveys to be measured. Suppose what we're trying to do is gather information from that, and it also helps look at our risk-based approach going forward, and that then helps us better target either changes to our standards, changes to our systems, changes to education and assistance as well, which hopefully, I think, as the question relates to, can help that flexibility. And also, we do have some changes to the we expect coming out of the new heavy vehicle legislative national heavy vehicle legislative review. Accreditation is an issue that's been discussed in there, and there's a lot of submissions in there. We're not really sure how that will play out coming forward, but it's probably a couple of years away, but we're always looking to collect as much data as we can to help enhance the processes that we have in place, including for making it to suit the flexibility that I know that a lot of operators are seeking.
So sorry about this, but your sound did go a little bit hard to hear there for a moment. Would Wayne be able to quickly summarize your answer there just really quickly for anyone who didn't catch what you said?
Certainly, it's just the reporting processes that we're putting in place will fill those gaps for us. It's recognised that there's no other official reporting got to be done. So it's by using the audit, this process of reporting, we're looking to fill that gap.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Sorry, the sound was just being a bit of a difficulty there. Okay, so last question. What is the NHVR doing to promote end user customer acceptance of the NHVAS compliance by operators as evidence of COR compliance?
So the safety management promotional work that we're doing and the educational material that we're actually putting out that we publish emphasises for companies that participate in the scheme how they align themselves with these kind of practices and the benefits that they need or they can get from the transport companies that actually are participants of the scheme. So it's about a public-facing a large degree of public material that we publish that we hope to encourage that and show the businesses that how they are good to use.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Wayne and Greg, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any other questions, please send an email to info@natroad.com.au. Please note the webinar will be uploaded to the website and our YouTube channel. Once again, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.